Hello everyone, today is day 48 of my 60 pounds in 90 days weight loss challenge, and I want to go over the keto basics. So I have a lot of new subscribers here and on Instagram, and people are starting to ask me if I can break down the basics of the diet for them because they don't quite understand how it works. So today I would like to go over a few of those basics, and I would like to talk about what the diet is, why we do the diet, what you can eat, what you can't eat, and problems that you may run into. So first off, the ketogenic diet is named such that when you deplete your body of glycogen or glucose, then your body starts producing ketones in your liver to run your body on. The ketones are made from fat. So basically you are switching from fueling your body by sugar to fueling your body by fat. And you do this by not eating any excess sugar, not eating any carbs. You have a very limited amount of carbs. When you do get carbs, you try to get them from vegetables, and those carbs should be fiber instead of starch. And so basically, you're trying to stay under, to begin the diet, you're trying to stay under a total of 20 carbs a day. And as many of those should be fiber as possible. So if you eat broccoli or if you eat lettuce, a lot of the carbs that you get from those foods are going to come from fiber. That is okay. Now, you don't want to overdo it, but when you are getting carbs, you want to get them from fiber and not from sugars. Now, getting a few carbs is almost inevitable. The only things that you can eat without getting any carbs are going to be butter, oils, maybe some bacons don't list any carbs, but you have to be careful of hidden carbs as well, because if it's under 1 gram of carb per serving, then the FDA doesn't force the manufacturers to put that there is a carb on the package. And so if you eat several servings, it can add up. So initially, when you start the diet, you want to do under 20 grams a day of carbohydrate. And then the rest of your calories are going to be made up of fat and protein. Now, this is a low carb, high fat diet. So your ideal macros are going to be 70 to 75% fat and 20 to 25% protein and less than 5% carbohydrate. And you calculate those percentages based on calories. So if you have 100 grams of fat and 100 grams of protein, that isn't 50% fat and 50% protein, because fat has more calories per gram than protein does. So when you put in your numbers to a calculator and it tells you how many carbohydrates, how many fat grams, and how many protein to eat, it may look a little bit off because it's going to give it to you in the number of grams that you need to eat. But when you calculate the calories out, it will be that 70 to 75% fat, 20 to 25% protein, and less than 5% carbohydrate. And there is a keto gains calculator that people seem to use and be happy with. So I'm going to try to put a link below in the description to that calculator for you to figure out how many of each type of macro you should be eating. Okay, so we know it's a low carb, high fat diet. We know that you get into ketosis by depleting your glycogen. You deplete your glycogen by not eating carbohydrates and not eating sugars, and then your body burns all of the glycogen that's stored in your muscle tissues and in your liver, and once it runs out of that, it starts producing ketones. There is a little bit of a lag there, especially if you haven't done it before. Your body's not adept at changing from burning sugar to burning fat. So in between that time period, a lot of times is when somebody will get the keto flu. They'll be low energy, their electrolyte balance can go haywire, and so they don't feel very good. This can probably, if you've never been in ketosis before, this is probably going to be several days into your diet when your body has finally depleted itself of glycogen, but before it starts producing ketones to run on. Now, ketones are very healthy. Ketones can fuel your brain, ketones can fuel your body, and when you are in ketosis, you are very satiated. You are not nearly as hungry as you are when you're eating sugar, because when you're eating sugar, your blood sugar spikes and then it goes down and then you're hungry. Your blood sugar spikes after you eat again and then it goes down and then you're hungry. When you're in ketosis, there's this constant supply of ketones providing you energy. In fact, a lot of times when you're eating, it's because psychologically you know that you need to eat. Psychologically, you've been used to eating. And eventually, when people have been in ketosis for a while and they're used to it and they're adapted to running their body on those ketones, they'll start intermittent fasting naturally because they're not near as hungry. So they go further and further in between meals. I myself, many days, will only eat one meal. But then some days I'm extra hungry and I'll eat 2 or 3 meals, maybe even a couple snacks. Most days I eat one meal. The types of things, the reason that you want to be in this type of a diet is because you want to train your body to burn fat. That way it can access the fat stores that you have and burn those instead of just making you hungry and waiting for more sugar to be supplied. There is a hormone called insulin, or IGF-1, that is produced every time you eat something. Now, the protein and fat do have an insulin response. Even some things that don't have any calorie have an insulin response. Coffee has an insulin response. That insulin response is to get the blood sugar out of your blood and into your cells. And whenever you have excess blood sugar, it socks it away into your fat cells. If you are insulin resistant, if you have metabolic syndrome, which a lot of us have due to the diet that we've grown up eating, you are going to have too much insulin in your body, because when you eat sugar, your body kind of shuts off the receptors that allow the insulin to pack away nutrition into those cells. And so then your pancreas creates more insulin. And so you have too much insulin in your bloodstream. It eventually does get the sugar socked away, or it gets burned up or it gets burned up so that you can use it for energy. And there's still insulin floating around your bloodstream. That insulin keeps you from accessing your fat stores for energy. That's why you get low energy in between meals. That's why you're hungry shortly after you eat, because all of your blood sugar gets put away or gets used up, and then there's still insulin in your bloodstream, and so you're not able to access that fat that you have stored to get your energy from it. What this diet does is it minimizes the insulin that gets produced by your pancreas. When you eat fat, when you eat protein, they have a lot lower insulin response than sugar or carbohydrates do. In fact, complex carbohydrates will have a lower insulin response than simple carbohydrates. So you could just go on a low glycemic index if you don't have insulin resistance to the degree that I do. I tried that. I went on a paleo diet. It did not work for me. Once I went full keto, I saw miraculous results. The reason that is because fat has the lowest of the 3 macros when it comes to insulin response from your body. So your body doesn't have as much insulin floating around your bloodstream, which allows you to access your own fat for energy. So that's why we want to get into keto. And we can talk more about that anytime you want to. You can shoot me a message. You can comment below on the video. I can do more videos about that topic. It's extremely interesting to me because it basically defeats the calories in, calories out mantra that people like to spew. And people that have never had huge weight problems like I have really haven't done the research a lot of times because it hasn't affected them personally. And not only that, they're insulin sensitive. If you're insulin sensitive, all you have to do is cut your calories and you're going to lose weight immediately. When you cut your calories and you're insulin resistant, all you do is get lower energy and your basal metabolic rate lowers to match your new calorie intake. So you basically have to starve yourself in order to lose any weight. Now you can do that. It's just very difficult because when you're not in ketosis, you're very hungry, or at least I am. So the types of foods that you're going to want to be eating are the fattier cuts of meats, avocados, oils. Those are the best ways to get your fats in, right? So a lot of times you'll see people drinking bulletproof coffee. The reason they drink bulletproof coffee is because they get their coffee, which we all like, and then they get to put butter or coconut oil or MCT oil in it, which is straight fat. So you get a lot of energy from it, but it doesn't spike your insulin very much. And so that gets them from meal to meal. Bacon. You'll see people wearing Body by Bacon t-shirts and stuff. I got to get myself one of those. I think they're hilarious. And the reason that they're wearing those is because bacon is very low on the insulin index because it's such a fatty meat with lower protein that it produces a very small insulin response. So you're aiming for small insulin responses, which are going to be the fattier cuts of meats, eggs, butters, oils. Avocados are a great source of fat, and you get some fiber in there as well. That means you get some carbohydrates, so you do have to count that. Things that you don't want to eat are going to be anything that is starchy, anything that is sugary, anything that has carbohydrates in it, right? So you're not going to want to eat potatoes. You're not going to want to eat any sugar or candies. You're not going to want to have any kind of starchy vegetables. You even have to limit the number of non-starchy vegetables that you have, because even though it's fiber, you're also picking up extra carbohydrates. You have to look for things that have hidden carbohydrates. Some things have sugar or sucrose or fructose in the ingredients, even though they're not listing carbohydrates on the nutrition label. Well, clearly that's going to have carbohydrates. You can't eat crackers. You can't eat potato chips. No French fries. Any kinds of sauces. People sweeten those up. People thicken them up with cornstarch. They've got tons of carbohydrates in them. So you're really going to want to eat a simple diet. And a simple diet of fatty cuts of meats, small amounts of non-starchy vegetables, and then butters and oils to make up the fat content that you need to make up to hit your macros. Problems that you may run into. I have seen people that seem to get higher anxiety, and I think that comes from a heightened awareness. For some reason, you're like super attentive when you are in ketosis. I think it probably has to do with some sort of fight or flight thing where your body thinks that you're hungry sometimes. And so you've got and your ketones are fueling your brain very well as well. So you've got this hyper attentiveness, or at least I do. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm attentive to the thing that I want to be attentive to. It's like a super alert feeling, but I'm not always alert to the things that I want to focus on. So that could cause some people anxiety. Another thing that can cause people anxiety on this diet is sometimes you have so much energy that you can't sleep as much as you're used to sleeping. So a lot of times I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll just not be able to go back to sleep for a couple hours because I'm not tired really. Finally, I get to go back to sleep. And then when I wake up, really I'm as refreshed as I am when I would get more sleep when I'm not in ketosis. There is the keto flu that people talk about. Now, most of the time, this is an electrolyte imbalance. Once you lose all your glycogen out of your body, once you burn all that glucose and glycogen, each gram of glycogen in your body, each gram of carbohydrate that you're stored up in your body holds 1.6 grams of water weight. So that's the initial huge weight loss that you'll see, like the first week that you're in ketosis. And is that you're losing all of that sugar, you're losing all of those water that was attached to the sugar, and then you're also losing some fat. So a lot of times when you first get into ketosis, you'll see like a 7 to 12 pound weight loss. And people will say, well, as soon as you get off the diet, that'll come back. Well, of course it will, because it's all stored up carbohydrates and water weight. Now, once you get past that point, you're going to start actually losing fat. But because your glycogen normally stores a lot of water, and now you don't have that glycogen to store the water, sometimes you can get an electrolyte imbalance. So you have to make sure that you're getting your sodium, magnesium, potassium. So I take a magnesium supplement. I'll put a link down below to the magnesium supplement I take. I also drink Powerade Zero, which has sodium, magnesium, and potassium in them. I eat light salt, which you can get anywhere. It's made by Morton, and it's like a light blue color tube. And I think that I'd have to look at it again. I think it's sodium and potassium because they wanted a lower sodium. So I use that instead so that I can get my potassium. You get potassium when you eat avocados. So these are ways that you make sure that you keep your electrolytes in balance. You got to keep putting electrolytes in because they are getting flushed out. Plus that water and electrolytes are using to flush your old fat out too. Because when you test yourself for ketosis, you can use those little strips, you can use a blood test, or you can use a breathalyzer. Some of the things that you may notice are that your breath or the taste in your mouth might not be quite the same when you're in ketosis. That's because you're actually exhaling ketones or acetone. And so you can actually get a different breath. It's really not that appealing. So maybe, brush your teeth more often. I don't know. When you urinate, you're actually going to be urinating out some ketones as well, which is why those strips will indicate whether or not you're in ketosis or whether you're shedding ketones. Now, when you become completely fat adapted, some people quit expelling those ketones because they're actually using them all for energy. I personally have been doing this diet for the better part of 2 years now, with a few month hiatus in the middle there where I didn't do what I should have and I put on a little bit of weight. But I actually still expel ketones in my urine, so I can still use those strips and see if I'm in ketosis. This diet is very good for people who are pre-diabetic or people who are diabetic, because the problem with pre-diabetics and diabetics is that they are insulin resistant. This addresses that problem. I don't believe that you can ever fix the problem completely, but you can treat the problem with a ketogenic diet. That means if you are diabetic and you are taking insulin, you have to stay very much on top of your blood sugar, because if you switch to this diet right off and you keep using all the insulin that you have prescribed, you may very well get very low blood sugar, which is not good for you either. So you need to be in constant contact with your doctor, getting your blood sugars tested, giving them all of the data of what you're eating and also your blood sugar results. If you are diabetic, I recommend you using a glucometer to make sure that your blood sugar stays where it should, and get that doctor to start reducing the amount of insulin that you're taking. So I think that's most everything. If I forgot something, please leave it in the comments below so that I can address it in a future video. If you have any more questions, let me know, because I do videos every day and I can try to address your question in subsequent days. Or you can message me directly on Twitter or Instagram or here on YouTube, and I try to check all of those daily. I don't always get to every one of them, but I try to. So if you have had trouble losing weight in the past, if you really do stick to your diet, but cutting calories isn't doing it for you, this is something that you definitely want to try. Now, I know it's hard because we all love carbohydrates and because we don't want to give them up. We don't want to give up our sweets and sugars, but that should show you how big of a problem it is. We really are addicted to it. So anyway, I hope that answers a lot of your questions. And my weigh-in video for today is going to be posted right now, and just so you can see the progress that I'm making on my 60 pounds in 90 days. I have been stalled for 5 or 6 days. I'm waiting for a whoosh effect because I've been exercising and I've also been eating under my calories. Today was a little higher calorie day because it's my birthday. So I don't expect to see any weight loss tomorrow. In fact, I might even see a slight gain because we did go out to dinner and my wife made me a keto cheesecake and everything. So I didn't get out of ketosis, I'm sure, but I still, cheated a little bit on my calorie goals. Anyway, oh, and that's another thing too. You can't eat unlimited calories on keto and still lose weight, because what you'll do is you'll get all your energy from the fat that you're taking in. So don't let anybody tell you that you can eat unlimited calories and still hit your goals, because in my opinion, if you are bringing in more energy than you're using, you're still not going to dip into those fat stores. Now, I'm not saying you're going to put on any weight by eating unlimited calories on keto, because without that insulin response, it's hard to store the fat. But I don't think you're going to access the fat in order to lose the weight either. So anyway, like and subscribe, like the video and subscribe to my channel, please, to help get this message out to as many people as possible, because we want to get everybody out there who's going to have diabetes in the future, if they don't change the way they're eating right now, to at least try keto. Take a good look at it and see if it's for them, because I'll tell you what, I really think it's an answer to our prayers. Okay, I'll see you guys tomorrow. 264.4.